Hi, I'm Underbelly, and you suck at mixing. But that's okay, because in today's lesson, I'll walk you through the mixing process from start to finish using my new song, Get Too Close, which I dropped a pretty sick music video for. But how did I get the song to sound so fat? Well, I did it with mixing, the process of blending all the sounds of your song together to present it in the best possible light. Now, mixing can't turn a shit song into a non-shit song. It can merely enhance the poo-poo that's already there. So if you're still working on your composition, arrangement, sound design, or anything like that, hold off on the mix until all that's squared away. Ready to move forward? Well, there's kind of two options with the mix. Option one is you just mix the song in the same project file you're already working with. Option two is we bounce out all the tracks to audio and start a new project file just for the mix. Breaking everything down to audio kind of forces you to commit to the song as is, instead of endlessly tweaking those same three knobs on that shitty Serum preset. Here's how. Okay, so check it. Here's the production project file for Get Too Close, but look at how unorganized and disgusting my project file is. So let's go ahead and hit File, Save Live, Set As, and we'll call this Get Too Close Pre-Mix. And this is gonna be the project file that we use to prepare our track for the mix down. Now that involves a couple steps. First off, we gotta rename all this bullshit. We gotta get rid of all the muted or unused tracks here to clean it up. We gotta ungroup as much as possible, because right now most of my drums are in a drum rack that sounds like this. And if we export this, all my drum sounds are just gonna be baked into one audio file. So here's what I gotta do. I'm gonna highlight my entire drum track and hit Command or Control J to consolidate all these into one big clip. Then I'm gonna double click on it. I'm gonna go through this and delete any deactivated notes here that I see. The reason why is because some dingus at Ableton decided that if you extract drum sounds out of a drum rack, it will reactivate all deactivated notes. Once you've successfully deleted all the deactivated notes, it's time to separate out all the drum sounds. We'll go into the drum rack, hit the list icon, right click on the drum sound you want separated, and hit Extract Chains. Ableton will create a new track at the bottom of your project with just that drum sound along with all its associated MIDI. Wowzers! There's actually no way to extract all of the chains in a batch process. You have to go through them one by one and hit extract chains on each and every one of them. It's so stupid. Once you've done that, it's finally time to export the audio. So if you go to File, Export Audio Video, you'll be met with a pop-up that looks like this. What we're gonna do is change the render track at the top from main to all individual tracks. Double check that the render start and length is good. Make sure that Include, Return, and Main Effects is set to off, and turn on Normalize. What Normalize does is it applies gain to each audio stem to make it as loud as possible without clipping, making the waveforms nice, big, and beautiful. This makes seeing weird clicks, pops, and cracks in your audio a lot easier, but it also destroys the relative volumes you might have set for your mix in the production session, which will force us to redo the volumes. Sounds terrible, right? Don't worry, it'll be good, I promise. Let's keep going. Okay, next up we got the sample rate. 48 or 44.1 is pretty standard. Whatever the speaker icon is set to, you're probably good with. Next up, we got encode PCM. Make sure this is on. I like my WAV files, and I like them at 16-bit. If you want a little bit more quality, you could do 24 or even 32. Make sure that dither is off, and then bam, let's go ahead and export this. We'll create a new folder called stems, and then we'll label them with the BPM. And boom! Okay, sick. We got our stems exported. Now we gotta figure out how to put them into Ableton somehow. First things first, let's go to your Ableton settings and just double check that Auto Warp Long Samples is turned off. Otherwise, this will fuck up how Ableton imports the stems. Next, we're gonna change the master BPM to whatever the BPM of your project is. So we'll do 150 here. And then we'll take all the stems here, we'll click on the top one, scroll down, hold down shift, click on the bottom one, and then we're gonna drag them into Ableton like this. I'm gonna click and drag, and I'm gonna hold down Command on Mac, I believe it's Control on PC, which will give each stem its own individual track. Then we'll let go of the mouse, and bada bing, bada boom, here are all the stems. Look at that, so beautiful, so colorful, oh my gosh. We color code stuff until we end up with something that looks like this. Oh my God, this is so beautiful. Check it out. I've color coded everything into these little groups here. We got magenta for all my synths, pink for all my risers and effects, blue for my booty basses, orange for my sick drums, and then finally red for my main vocals. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna click on any one of these tracks, hit Command or Control A to highlight all of them, and bring the volumes all the way down to -infinity. And what I'm gonna do is start bringing in the tracks one by one in order of importance, probably starting with my kick. So I'm gonna bring the kick, I don't know, -12. Let's try that. And then what's the next most important thing? Probably the clap. So let's bring that in slowly. And then maybe the hi-hats or rides. Tambourines, tambo loop. Now you might be thinking, hey Underbelly, I don't know how many dBs a damn tambo loop should be. It's okay, just go with your gut, keep bringing in the sounds. If you do it all in one section, move the loop bracket over to another one until you've brought in all the levels across all the tracks. Now once we've brought in the levels, the next step is to add some sidechain compression. Basically, when your kick plays, having everything else in your mix duck out of the way so your kick sounds nice and punchy. I use a free Max for Live device called Underbelly. Underbelly is amazing. The way it differs from the built-in compressor though is that it doesn't actually take in audio as its input. It doesn't listen to the sound of your kick. It merely sees that your kick plays a MIDI note and then it does this pre-made volume curve on any track that you put on it. We can still bring in MIDI from the original project. Check this out. All you gotta do is go to current project and then we have all the old versions of the project here. Let's go to the Get Too Close premix project here. We'll open it up and then we'll go ahead and find our kick and we'll drag it to the tippy top of our session. Rename this to sidechain input. We're gonna group literally everything outside of the drums. So all this other stuff here and call this group not drums. And might as well just even group the drums themselves. We'll do drums for this. And on not drums is where we're gonna slap Underbelly. Beautiful, we'll get the sidechain input as the input for Underbelly. Okay, let's turn it on and off, hear it in the mix. No punch, punch. Okay, pretty sick. Now that we got sidechaining and some basic leveling out of the way, it's time for the most important step of any mix. Finding reference tracks. Reference tracks are songs you would like your mix to sound like. I have 3 reference tracks. Let's take all 3, bring them into this session. I'll hold down Command again on Mac to give each clip its own track, and wowzers. In order to really get a good perspective on our mix, we have to measure how loud the reference tracks are, measure how loud our track is, and bring the reference tracks down so that they're all at the same loudness. To do this, we need a loudness meter. Let's go ahead and put it on our main track here. Only thing we have to pay attention to is where it says integrated here. So let's go ahead and play our drop and see what kind of number we get. Okay, beautiful. Looks like we're hitting around -10 LUFS. Now let's go ahead and solo out the first reference track and see what kind of LUFS we're getting there. Holy shit! Oh my God! Let's go ahead and bring this reference tracks down just on the volume meter here until it's also hitting -10 LUFS like we were. Okay, pretty sick. All right, let's do the same thing for the next reference. Okay, close enough. And last but not least. All right. So now all 3 reference tracks are hitting around -10 LUFS, and now we can close the loudness meter and simply hop back and forth between our mix and the reference tracks and just kind of see what we notice. Reference 1, Okay, all right. Reference 2. Reference 3. First off, the drums are way punchier, specifically the kick. The other thing I'm noticing is that overall the references are brighter. They have a little bit more high end than our mix right now. Start by seeing if we can get our drums to cut through the mix more. I can go ahead and make the kick louder. Let's just put it up another, I don't know, 3 or 4 dB. Now I'd like to glue the drum group together. To do this, I'll slap multi-band compression on the group and take a listen. Okay, let's turn this bad boy on and off. All right, it's definitely turning shit up, so let's not let that fool us. We'll turn the output down a few dB just to match it, on and off. Okay, that's pretty damn close. Now, what the heck is this thing even doing? Well, let's think about what a compressor does, right? A compressor turns down the loud parts of a sound. A multi-band compressor divides the sound into lows, mids, and highs, and turns them down individually. You can see how much is turning each down by looking at these little blue numbers at the bottom left. Now, if I want to turn the, say, kick down a little bit more, I can do this just by dragging that red little square thing down. Oh, but I want that kick, I want that booty bass there. So let's bring the kick up actually back to its original level, which is represented by the orange tips here. And it looks like we're taming the highs a little bit. I like that. Maybe let's bring out that rim a bit. Okay, that's pretty sick. Let's hear the difference. It's pretty subtle, but it kind of helps glue it together a little bit. And now to really squash the peaks down, I'm gonna add a saturator on this track. Now, you can see that my saturator is set to the digital clip setting, and I've also set it so that the drive and the output are opposites of each other, meaning that this isn't actually gonna turn the drums up, it's just gonna add a little bit of crunch, and it's also gonna reduce the peaks a little bit. See how much the peaks are jumping up before the saturator versus after? Kind of squeezes the drums group together so that we're able to get a much louder master down the line. Let's take a listen with both of these effects on and off. So that's off, that's on. Let's hear it in the mix. Okay, that shit's fucking fat. Now, I'd like to clean my drums up just a little bit more. Maybe let's group all our hi-hats together. We'll hit Command G there and take a listen. Okay, that's pretty sick, but I'm hearing a little bit of low end on some of these hi-hats. So let's double check that. I'll slap an EQ8 on this track. And I'm seeing there's like this big bump every once in a while. Let's go ahead and get rid of that shit. That makes me curious. Maybe there's some other low end on some of these other drum sounds that we could clean up. So maybe I'll go to my room here, slap that EQ8 on there. Okay, look at that bullshit down there. Let's clean that up as well. Just raise this. Maybe we'll do that same thing with the other snare. We change the curvature of this EQ to the ×4 just to be really precise with it. And maybe you'll hear that. Cutting out low end from tracks that don't need it is honestly one of my favorite mixing techniques. It just helps clean up the whole mix and make that booty bass come through even more. Speaking of booty bass, let's figure out what's going on with our sub. Now, sometimes it can be hard to tell if you're listening on shitty headphones like this, so let's add a spectrum to our main track and visualize the low end. To do this, we'll go to the main track, add that spectrum, there it is, and we'll just take a listen. The spectrum gives us a visual representation of all the different frequencies that make up our song. Now you can see if I pause it for a sec, the spectrum auto resizes, making it impossible to read. So to turn the auto resizing off, we're gonna press play and click auto on the bottom left. Then we're gonna use these blue sliders to manually zoom in on the low end. If I hover over these big blue bumps with my cursor, I can see exactly how loud my sub is and the frequency as well as the note, which is pretty sick. Now, we gotta make sure that we're hitting the appropriate amount of sub for our genre. We are making the dub step after all, so let's check it against our reference tracks. We'll solo out the first reference and see what kind of sub they're hitting. Okay. Yep, it's a little bit louder. Let's check the next one. Holy shit, I'm gonna adjust this graph here a little bit. Go ahead and back to our booty bass and just turn it up, I don't know, like 1 or 2 dB here. What's really important is making sure that we have a consistent amount of sub, especially if we're switching from one bass sound to the next. So over here, I'm going from my car start bass over to my glonk. Let's take a listen. We'll look at the car start. It's hitting like -6-ish. And then we got a glonk over here. Ah, weak. Come on, man. Let's bring our glonks up. Let's do like, I don't know, -1. Let's see what that's hitting. Okay, that's a little bit better. So I actually brought in the original vocal stems and chopped them up, really made sure that they were super clean, and redid the effects chain as well. So let's go through it. We got the gate to cut out all the quiet parts, EQ to cut out that low end, auto shift to make me a good singer. I'm also automating the formant up and down to kind of give it this pitch up, pitch down effect. This is a free emulation of the LA2A compressor, very good for vocals. Then I'm squashing that again with the built-in Ableton compressor on the default settings, OTT to squash it even more, and then we got Valhalla Shimmer that I'm automating. Ooh, and these little build-ups. Oh, that's sexy. Now I'm using shifter to create this pitched up double of the effect. Sometimes I'm even automating some echo in there. Okay, so let's say you're feeling pretty good about the mix and it's stacking up well against the reference tracks. What's next? Well, you recall that we had to turn all these reference tracks down to match the loudness of our mix. Now I think it's time to turn it back up. So we'll put all these back to 0 dB. And now you're probably thinking, hey Underbelly, how the heck are we supposed to turn our track that loud? You can't just fucking crank the master like this. It's gonna sound terrible. Well, we do it through mastering. Now, people overcomplicate the shit out of mastering, but basically it's there to make your song about as loud as other songs in your genre. And there's really two main tools we can use to make that happen. If you're going the clean route, you can use a limiter. If you're going the dirty route like me, you can use a saturator. And if you want the cleanest, dirtiest route, you can invest in the newfangled Saturate plugin. This is my favorite saturator. This is my entire mastering chain right here. All I gotta do is turn the clipper shape from soft to hard and take a listen. Now you can see there's this red line over on the right side. That's how much the saturator is clipping off the peaks here. Now if I switch this to auto, that basically creates an auto gain match so it doesn't actually get any louder. Let's see what turning up the drive does to the sound of the mix. Okay, that's horrible. We can't go that loud. So we basically want to crank the drive as hard as we can without really getting into that distortion. Okay, probably around 6 there. Let's go ahead and turn auto off and see how loud our mix is getting right now. Okay, look at that. If we play each of these reference tracks through the main channel right now, they're gonna get doubly mastered, right? Because they've already been mastered, and then they're gonna run through goddamn newfangled Saturate. So just to get that out of the way, we're gonna change the routing on all 3 reference tracks. We're gonna switch them from main to external out. This will still go to our headphones, but it'll bypass all the effects on the master, and we can kind of see how we're stacking up here. Okay. That's sounding pretty on point. Pretty close in terms of loudness. Holy shit. And then I'm ready to export the damn thing. So let's go ahead, file, export audio video. This time we want to set the bit depth to 24, the sample rate probably 48 or 44.1, whichever you're listening on, and make sure you add a little bit of dither. Dither is really quiet white noise that gets added to the file to cover up for any digital artifacts that might appear. We'll call this whatever you want. Get too close, master 01. Oh my god, and we're done with the track. Holy shit, this was amazing. Thanks for watching. If you like these tips, check out the full music video for my song Get Too Close by clicking that button over there. I'm Underbelly. Have a great day.